When you feel a cold coming on, what do? For me, I like to cozy up with a hot cup of tea because it really helps me slow down, and I like to think it helps me heal. Now, tea in Asian culture represents a peaceful temperament that purifies the soul and brings harmony between people and within oneself. Now, if you've read the book Crazy Rich Asians, yes, it was a book before it was a movie, you may recall a chapter in the book that goes into really deep detail about the many steps it takes to pour the perfect cup of tea. But I'm going to boil it down into 3 simple steps for you. Step 1, prepare. You choose your flavor, boil the water, pretty self-explanatory, right? Step 2, awaken. What does that mean? Well, it's the act of taking your hot water, pouring it over the leaves, swishing that around, then pouring it out. What that does is it helps the tea leaves awaken to reveal their full aroma. Then finally, you get to enjoy. Now, this delicate and deliberate process of pouring the perfect cup of tea really forces you to slow down, even when your brain is moving 1,000,000 miles a minute. Now, did you know that the average person has over 60,000 thoughts a day? Now, that's a lot. But what if the majority of those thoughts are not super positive? Maybe you're worrying about something that happened at work or school. Maybe you're worried about a sick loved one. Or maybe you're worried about going home to an abusive partner. Now, these thoughts can be all-consuming, and if we don't have the right tools to properly address them, then think about what that does to our overall health. Maybe you'll become sick, burnt out, depressed. In Asian culture, it's really challenging to talk about mental health because sometimes there literally are no words to talk about it. Now, let that steep for a moment. In some Asian languages, there literally are no words to describe when you're experiencing depression, anxiety, PTSD, mania, and maybe the closest word to describe it is crazy. But that in of itself can be very problematic. And this means that there are a lot of feelings and thoughts that can't be properly dealt with or addressed, and even the physical outcomes that stem from our mental health challenges, they can't be dealt with properly. And not being able to talk about our mental health is making us sick. When you can't communicate what you need, how can you get the help that you need? Now, even when you can have these conversations with loved ones or even mental health professionals, we're often left in the aftermath of guilt, shame, denial, and blame. No wonder why Asian Americans are 3 times less likely than any other racial or ethnic group to seek mental health support. Now, another reason why it's really difficult to talk about mental health in the Asian community is because it can be really confusing trying to navigate between cultures. And maybe we have that lack of foundational support. Now, to unpack this a little bit, I'll give you an example. So, growing up, every weekend I would go to dim sum with my grandparents. And if you get there first, you order the tea. And the tea that you order is always going to be the tea that you know your parents and grandparents will like. And you don't really get to choose, even if it's not really your cup of tea. It's a collective experience, and everyone drinks from the same teapot. Now, this is quite different than in, let's say, Western culture, where my generation, millennials, we've popularized going to coffee shops and taking a good 30 seconds to order our hyper-customized drinks. Mine, for example, is a tall green tea latte with soy, no foam, and half sweet, please. You get to be an individual. But the expectation in Asian culture is that you do what's best for the family, the collective, whether that be making a choice about your tea at dim sum, or in life, like shielding your family from what's really going on with your mental health. Growing up between cultures constantly begs you to choose between a set of values, expectations, and behavior. Now, for me, I grew up in Vancouver and was very fortunate to have my parents raise me on both Western and Eastern values. So what that meant was they allowed me to flourish as an individual, but still instilled in me the values of hard work and putting your family first. Now, to better understand this connection between my Canadian and Asian heritage and culture, I turned to storytelling and created a media company and community for, by, and about Asian millennials called Cold Tea Collective. And what we do is we created a platform for people like me, and maybe even just like you, to share stories of how we're navigating our identity growing up between cultures. And over the last 2 years, we've shared over 100 stories, as I said, from people just like me and maybe even just like you, growing up between our Asian and Canadian heritage, growing up between our collective and individual hopes, dreams, and fears, including some of the cast of Crazy Rich Asians and more. Now, over the last few months specifically, we've focused a lot on opening up opportunities for Asian Canadians and Americans to share stories about their mental health, how they're overcoming challenges, and actually destigmatizing the conversation around mental health and having meaningful conversations, from losing a friend to actually even helping their parents seek support from mental health professionals. And these are the stories of everyday Asian Canadians and Asian Americans. The coolest part, though, is that some of the people that share stories on our platform have never written an article, let alone a story before, or talked about their mental health in such a public way. And for them, it's been a therapeutic experience. And through storytelling, they've been able to awaken and empower their families, their community, to not just create language around mental health, but also dialogue, understanding, and a safe space. My hope for healthcare is that we can destigmatize the conversation around mental health for the Asian community by empowering people through storytelling. And even if there's no language around it, at least we'll be talking about it. Maybe over a cup of tea. Thank you.